often have you felt restricted to spiritual practices that often seem outdated and of little relevance in today's world? Are you discouraged to express your own creative talents and develop spiritual practices that are uniquely you? The Liturgical Rebels podcast is for people like you who want to reimagine and reconstruct their faith and spiritual practices. It's for those who want to reshape belief and journey closer to God's wholeness with peace, justice, and flourishing, not just for themselves, but for the earth and all its inhabitants. In today's episode, the third and last in our Advent series, I will be in conversation with Mark Pierson, lead pastor and worship curator with Rhythms of Grace Church in Auckland, New Zealand. We will talk about Advent in the Southern Hemisphere, where it is summer, not winter, and the seasons seem out of sync with the liturgical calendar. Mark's insights are wonderful, and his creativity gives all of us, wherever we live in the world, much to think about and learn from. Mark, it's an absolute delight to be able to chat to you again on the Liturgical Rebels podcast. So thank you very much for being a part of this again.
Thank you. It's lovely to talk with you, Christine.
Yeah, it's just, you are such a special friend. And of course, you came to visit us recently, all the way from New Zealand. And that was an absolute delight.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. I was, as usual, when I told Lily Lewin that I was interviewing you again, she was quite jealous because she always likes to be a part of these things too.
Oh, she has to learn she can't do everything.
Exactly. Yeah, she's not quite there yet. So, but the last time she and I interviewed you, we talked about curated worship experiences, T&B, and just generally the things that you've done over the many years of your life. But I recognize that many of the people that listen to this podcast probably are not familiar with you and the work that you've done. So can you give us a brief synopsis of, who you are and what you have been doing with your life?
Sure. Well, I describe myself as a garden variety pastor. So pastoral leadership in the local church has always been my passion. And I've done that for coming up 45 years. So, the local church and ways in which the local church might sustain people in their following of Christ in the world is kind of my mission, if you like, what my life's been about for some decades now. So, and beyond that platform, I've always felt I needed to be part of a local church. In New Zealand, we would call it, using Maori language, a turanga waiwai, a place to stand. That's where my feet are planted in the local church. So sometimes I feel that there are too many people talking about what the local church should do who haven't been part of a local church for a long time.
Yes. Or else have gone from church to church.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't want that to happen to me. So for some reason, I've also always been interested in creativity and the edge of creativity a bit, pushing the boundaries. I've never particularly considered myself a boundary pusher, but other people have said that I am. So
you certainly helped me push boundaries.
Oh, that's good.
Very good.
So, and that's for me has interestingly been about the arts and using the arts in worship and working out ways to integrate artists more into the life of the church. So it's interesting to me because I have no artistic background or experience whatsoever. My father played the mouth organ. That was about as close as we got in our family, and lots of Winifred Atwell LPs. But so I don't know where any of that came from,
Hmm.
except by the grace of God. So that's been my interest. And that means for me that it's that worship, Sunday worship, is a blank sheet of paper, really. I think it's an anything goes. Once you've considered a couple of basic questions like what does the church exist for and what does worship exist for?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
my working definitions that I wrote about in The Art of Curating Worship, for those are just that, the church exists to sustain people in their following of Christ in the world. And worship exists to enable that to happen. I describe myself as a worship curator. And my slightly pretentious sounding definition is that I curate contexts, bespoke, ephemeral, structured, and ambient safe spaces built around practices that offer people the potential for liminal moments of individual and corporate transformational engagement with the Trinitarian community of God that will sustain deeper human flourishing. So it does sound pretentious when I put it together like that, but it's taken me sort of 20 years of adding words and phrases and modifying things to really understand what it is that I do. So, and that for me then is a blank sheet of paper when I know that what I'm doing this Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, is about sustaining the people who will gather there in their following of Christ in the world.
Lovely.
Um, and each sort of word is important to me. It's about following Christ. It's about sustaining them, and it's about whoever is there. So so that's the blank sheet of paper stuff for me. And so anything goes. Like,
Wonderful. Yeah, I
people
love
don't
it.
find it too safe if you're changing everything up every Sunday. So there's you end up with a basic framework in which you provide that creativity. But yeah, that's what I've come with. That's where I've come
Love it.
from.
I love it. As you know, this is part of the Advent series
Oh,
that we're doing on liturgical rebels. And of course, your experience of Advent and Christmas is a little bit different from most of the people that I've chatted to because the others have all come from the Northern Hemisphere. And
wow.
even as I know, growing up in Australia and New Zealand, we are inundated with
Mm,
images of Advent and Christmas in winter.
yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
and I know that I always found that a challenge, and I'm
Mm.
sure you've found it even more of a challenge. So, tell us a little bit. You've done a lot of curating of Advent worship. So, tell us a little bit about that and,
Oh.
what you feel are the essentials of Advent worship. In some ways, that can be applied anywhere, but some of the challenges you've found as well.
Well, one of the things that's helped us, I think, in the last 5 years is the massive decline in the sending of Christmas cards, which means that people are buying a lot less. So we no longer have to choose between snowy covered winter scenes on our Christmas cards if we send Christmas cards at all. Um, so yes, we've for a long time lived with a lack of resources. So for us, this is the start of summer. Advent marks the start of summer for us, really. In fact, in New Zealand, the last weekend, the last Monday in October is Labor Day for us, and that's officially the start of summer. If you lived in New Zealand, you would wonder what the weather was doing because it certainly doesn't feel like the start of summer yet. So Advent for us and Christmas in particular means Christmas Eve services are, it's still bright and sunny till quite late at night. So we go for 11 p.m. So yeah, that has been a problem. I think that we cope with it much better now. I think there are some resources around, but um, it just, I mean, it's the same with Easter. For us, it's at a different season, different time of the year. So the dying and rebirth thing doesn't work quite so well for us. Um, but Advent is maybe a bit easier to slip into our current season, except that people are starting to go on holiday. So we have
Yes.
nearly 2 months of holiday vacation time over the Christmas period. So I find that whatever I'm doing, I compress a little because people aren't going to be there for the whole season of Advent. So almost certainly a lot of people will have gone away on vacation, on holiday by the fourth Sunday of Advent, and Christmas Eve, even more so. So yeah, it is what it is, and I think we cope with it much better now.
Uh-huh.
Unless there's still some people who seem to insist on kind of a Northern Hemisphere type Advent and Christmas. But
Mm.
I think generally we're picking up what's going on in the season. It is a busy sort of time of the year for us, in people's homes, but also even in the calendar. There's several significant national days
Yeah.
commemorating national events, particularly to do with Maori, and the New Zealand wars, that happen in the few weeks before Advent. So from Labor Day through to Advent, there's a lot going on. We've got All Saints
Mhm.
and Souls as well. Um, yeah, and then Christ the King, all leading us into Advent. Christ the
Mhm.
King is Stir Up Sunday, as well. That we
Yes. Tell them what that means.
Stir Up Sunday comes from the piece in the liturgy that says something about stirring up your hearts. Stir
Mm.
up your heart. Yeah, stir up, O God, the wills of your faithful people, that they, bringing the fruit of good works in abundance, may receive a bountiful reward from you, and so on. So the story goes that in Victorian times, the cooks who attended church on Christ the King Sunday would hear the words of the collect, which would then remind them to make the family Christmas pudding
Yes.
for their Christmas Day feast. So we do that on that, where someone brings along all the ingredients and we mix them up in the service, and everyone takes a turn at stirring it.
Oh, I love that. I love
Um,
that.
and
Yeah,
then,
it's kind of, part of what I love about that tradition is that it combines the liturgy with something every day,
yes,
in the
yeah,
celebration of people.
yeah. And for us, Christmas Eve is one of my favourite services of the year. It's at 11 p.m. for us, and we have a special feature called Food as Art. So the supper is always a significant part of that, and we do that as an art form, which we can talk about or not. But we use whoever's looking after the Christmas cake makes small Christmas cakes, like smaller than muffin sized
Mm.
ones. So we'd have 50 or 60 of those, and we eat them on Christmas Eve. So that's the stir up, the cake that was made at Stir Up Sunday. We eat on Christmas Eve as part of our as our food as art supper that time.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, tell us a little more about it. What kind of, what came to me, of course, was thinking that people did very decorative things, but what is it actually
No,
like?
it's not necessarily highly decorative.
Mhm.
So, all we do was, well, this year I'm working on. I have a circular table that's 8 feet in diameter, and and that's black, and that will be in the center of the room with an upside down Christmas tree hanging in the middle of that. Um, because we're upside down, and because there's a lot of symbolism in an upside down Christmas tree if you Google it. And then there'll be an electric train running around the circular table that will carry the food on it, and it will be lit with some laser lights and things on it. So it's just a bit, it's just strange. So we build scaffolding stuff and use ultraviolet light and use lasers, all sorts of things, and just to create the supper as a bit of a special thing on that Christmas Eve.
Mhm. Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, as you know, I love creativity, and to
Mm.
be creative with this is something that I think all of us need to think about. Part of what comes to me as you talk about this, though, I mean, here in the United States, Advent and Christmas are just so hectic.
Oh,
I mean, not just the consumerism and everything, but everybody is just constantly on the move.
yeah,
Preparing for Christmas pageants, and
yeah,
that's a big thing,
yeah,
of course, and a huge amount of work. Preparing, of course, a lot of liturgical churches do. Um, so many services over the
mm.
week before Christmas and such. It's hugely busy, and yet as I hear you talk, I think this sounds so relaxing. Do you think that Advent is a more relaxing season down under?
I'm not sure whether it's more relaxing than the Northern Hemisphere, but I think that Advent has to be relaxing. I think,
Hmm.
and Christmas. I mean, it's a crazy season here too because the sun's coming out and everybody's out and it's summer and all the shopping stuff that goes on with that, and Christmas pageants, and particularly the liturgical churches, as you say. I think it's important to realise that I'm part of a small church
Hmm.
of 50 or 60 adults on a Sunday, just to putting it into a context for budgets and everything else that we do. So it's a bit different than, but I think, I take the no room at the inn phrase at an Advent, and if we are not modelling a different way of being in Advent
Hmm.
and Christmas, I think we've lost a huge opportunity. I was going to say we've lost the plot, but that may be true as well. The no room at the inn slogan should not be true of our lives. That we're
Hmm.
modeling the church, not the craziness of the Christmas season, not the overindulgence, but simplicity and slowness, calmness, peace. The hope, joy, love, peace that we talk about. I think we
Hmm.
need to be able to model in some ways in the way we live, so that when our neighbours talk to us about how crazy the season is, we're able to say, well, I'm deliberately slowing down a bit. So uh,
Hmm. Yes.
for
Yeah.
whatever reason, whether it's to enjoy family life or whatever's going on. So so I think our services, and we would deliberately set out with our Advent services and our Christmas Eve service to shorten the service a bit, to keep it
Mm.
a bit tighter in that sense, free flowing, informal, but so it's not another pressure on people's lives at that time of the year. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, One of the things that you used to do was Advent art cards
Mm,
for, I think, when you were working with World Vision. And I loved those. Just a piece of art, a very short scripture, a very short reflection. And my favorite, of course, was the one where you used Jane Hines's um, artwork, from Queensland, I think she was, in
yeah.
Australia, and the summer images of the Advent story, which, of course, we have so few of. That I just felt it was, and
Mm,
also just not just summer images, but very much everyday kind of images of everyday kind of people as
yeah.
well that you used.
Yeah.
And, I think that's just such a great idea. So, how can we help people to connect both to these everyday images and images that connect to our context, I
Mm.
suppose, is part of what I'm wondering about here.
Yeah, I was delighted to find Jan's series of paintings. All her paintings are located in her town where she lives, of
Mm.
Townsville in northern Australia. So you could actually go and visit the Sea Bar Cafe. I don't know if it's still there
Ah,
or not. They were all real locations.
uh-huh.
And I discovered her paintings and then found that she had three to do with the Christmas story, but she didn't quite complete it. So I asked her if she would paint a fourth one that sort of completed the series that took us through to the Nativity, which she generously did. Um, but yeah, the Advent series was about finding either a piece of art by a variety of artists from back in time, back in history, or a series of paintings from the same artist, if that was possible. And I think we did them for 8 or 10 years. So even in church without those cards now, even in the Advent services, I would still use a lot of art,
Mhm.
talk about whatever the theme is that we've come up with um, for Advent. And I don't necessarily localize the themes um, very specifically, except that I'm wanting to have, if it's love, joy, hope, peace, which I've become a bit tired of, so I've been changing them up a bit in the last few years. Um,
Yes, me too.
yeah, we could talk about that if you like too, but they would always be localized in the sense that we'll be talking about what they meant in our context, using examples of what's going on in our local context or in the world. Peace is always an easy one to find content around. But there's not a lot of sort of local traditions that we build into Advent. There are traditions that we have in our church, Rhythms of Grace Church, that happen, like the Advent wreath and different people making Advent wreaths and the Christmas Eve storytelling and food as art things. But generally, we look at this no room at the end kind of, let's make space to model a different way of doing Christmas, which is the upside down Christmas tree thing a bit as well.
Yes. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, I like that. I was wondering, several years ago, I think it was Bosco Peters used the Southern Cross as, a symbol for, he was talking about, I think, if memory holds me well, of both Advent and Easter. And, grappling with this whole thing of our need for people who live in the Southern Hemisphere, for symbols that kind of help connect us to the world in which we live rather than to the Northern Hemisphere. And I was wondering if you have some symbols, cultural symbols or kind of, nature symbols that you find are really helpful at this time of the year for people to connect to.
The short answer is no, I don't really.
Oh, in Australia, I love the Christmas bells, the little lilies that flower, and they do look like a Christmas bell. But,
on our Christmas, on our Advent wreaths, which we kind of generally have a fairly significant focus on, either made by different people each week or a different wreath each week, we would always put putukawa flowers and leaves around them, although the seasons have changed so significantly that often on the first Sunday of Advent, putukawa is a bit hard to come by.
Tell people what putukawa is.
It's known as the New Zealand Christmas tree. It's very bright red.
It's beautiful, yeah.
I don't know what you call those little bits that stick out from them. Very bright red, and it's everywhere in New Zealand. It has some great. You can use it as a great illustration because it tends to hang on the edges of cliffs and precarious kinds of places. So that would connect back to Advent story and the Christmas story. So that would be our major influence each year. So we're not using holly or thistles or anything like that.
Well, you wouldn't have holly with red berries on it at Christmas time in New Zealand, would you?
No, we wouldn't. And
unless it's been flown in from the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah, we probably do a lot of those kinds of things subconsciously without seriously thinking about them, but they are just adapting the culture. I very much like to discover the essence of something and then to the blank sheet of paper thing again, to figure out how we're going to incorporate that into our worship rather than just holly in the ivy or whatever. So, because that reminds me that we're getting more and more New Zealand Christmas Advent songs written now, which is great as well, although people still like the familiar.
Yes. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, we've been so kind of indoctrinated throughout our lives that it's hard for us to think more locally in terms of, the symbols, and we still very much. I was thinking, actually, as you talked about the fact that many people are going on holiday, that in some ways the journeying of Advent would be a good theme to think about.
Yes, and we've often given people little packs to take away when they do go away, things to do, particularly if they're going to be at a campsite somewhere, on Christmas Day itself. Little things that they can do like that.
What kind of things?
Placemat type things that have activities around them,
Uh-huh.
fold out booklets that give the readings, a
Uh-huh.
set of readings for maybe between fourth Sunday and Advent through to Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, sorry. Reminder that, the season of Christmas, despite what the retailers tell us, doesn't start till after Christmas, and the 12 days of Christmas aren't the 12 days of having big sales before Christmas. Um,
Yes.
that kind of building those pieces of knowledge and rhythms and rituals into people's lives. So yeah, a paper bag with all the stuff in it, depending on whether they're a family or just a couple or older couple or whatever.
I really like that idea. I many years ago put together what I called my spiritual travel kit.
Mhm.
Just a general one. But I'm thinking, yeah, having one for that's specifically for Advent or Christmas would be a great idea to think
Yeah,
about. What would you want to give people for this
yeah. Put a
season of the
candle in there.
time?
We put a candle,
Mhm.
um, things like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
just a.
yeah.
I like the placemat kind of concept because it gives people and we've done this through the whole of Advent at home, that a red placemat um, or a purple placemat, depending on which colour you go for an Advent, that is a place where people put their Advent candles, so encouraging people at home. So just instead of get 4 candles or 5 candles and set them up somewhere, this is a placemat that's got scripture readings or something like that on it, something basic, and this is where you put your candles. So it
Mm.
marks out a bit of a sacred space, sacred
Uh-huh.
place in people's homes or in their office or whatever, and becomes a talking point for people who do it in their office if you're allowed to light candles at work or use battery operated candles. So yeah, I like the setting aside a little space. So that's what
Uh-huh.
the placemat does.
Yes. Yes, I think so. I think it's a great idea. Uh, and, not just for people that are traveling, of course, it's a great idea for people who are at home because it's not only carves out a space, but it also carves out a time,
Yeah,
uh, which is good because you've got to set it up probably each day or whatever. I mean, each week or
light a
whatever.
candle, and you light the
Yeah.
candle each day. And we often talk about people lighting candles in their homes as a reminder to pray.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
in our home we use actually Christmas tree lights that are bunched up and put in a glass bowl on our table, and
Ah.
that's
Mhm.
we first set that up when Russia invaded Ukraine.
Mm.
We're on our second set of lights now because the first one's
Wow.
burned out, which is just so sad. And that's even after all these years, that's still when you see it, just tips the memory uh,
Yes.
to remind you to pray that things are still going on in Ukraine.
Yes.
So yes,
Yeah,
lighting a candle for Advent can have a similar effect.
uh-huh. I, I'm just about before I I'm I'm recording this before Advent, and I'm just about to transform my sacred space, and part of what I put up in my sacred space for Advent is an icon by Kelly Lattimore of a Christ under the rubble,
Oh yes,
which of course is specifically for was done for Gaza, but it's just as appropriate for Ukraine, uh, for other um, violent spaces, and not just violent spaces. I think of how many places have been devastated by natural disasters
yeah,
this year
absolutely.
as well. And that Christ under the rubble, for me, has had huge significance
Mm.
in terms of looking at Advent and Christmas as I look at it this year.
Yeah, and people's lives are under the rubble. Um,
Exactly. Yes.
as well. Yeah, it's always good to bring those things or to have the double meaning to them, I think. The
Yes.
personal and national or international goes with
Yes.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think for me, well, I know this year, there's a lot of personal significance to that
yeah.
as well as a lot of my followers know. Um, but this is, I mean, it's certainly giving me ideas as we talk about this, because I think thinking through, I think many years ago I started setting up Advent gardens, and part of it
Mm,
was because I was not only frustrated with, same old, But I was also frustrated with the fact that I realized that these same old things didn't kind of tap into my imagination and creativity. I
Mm,
didn't have to think
mm,
about them.
yeah,
And I think that Advent and Christmas are times when we need to be thinking, what is it that we want to be saying? What
yeah,
do we want to be
yeah.
reflecting on,
Yeah. I'm always a bit conflicted during Advent because there's so much I'd like to get in. I want to tell the whole story of God coming to earth. There's only 4 Sundays, and a lot of people aren't going to be there for the 4th one.
Yeah.
And Christmas Eve I always use as the retelling of the whole story. So it's a very
Uh-huh.
simple service. A lot of scripture readings done by different people, and not too much else. Some carols on there. We're not big singers, but some carols on there, and the scripture readings, and a bit of prayer, and then stations, reflections, and then our um, food as art supper. So, but there's
Beautiful.
a limit to what you can fit in on a Sunday that people can manage, and the lectionary readings don't follow the story as such. And we're
No,
not we're kind of a interdenominational church, so gathering of people. So I want to tell the story so people get the story, but there's too much of it to fit in. So just have to make some decisions. And if I'm going to go with the hope, peace, joy, love in the background somewhere, which I usually do, even if I've got another theme. Like one year we did hopeful, peaceful, joyful, and
yeah.
loving, just changing each of the words, which gave us a different perspective on it.
I like it because it's got a sense of outward focus
Yeah, it's
rather
a bit
than
more
inward
active.
focus. Mm.
Yeah, to be hopeful, to be peaceful, to be joyful, to be loving, longing, imagining, waiting, welcoming one year. And then a couple of years ago, I picked up on the Doctor Who theme. It's bigger on the inside. When we went into the TARDIS, it was this comment, it's bigger on the inside, that people were always surprised at. And so it was Advent, Christmas are bigger on the inside. So we
Mm.
built a TARDIS over the entrance way to the door, that people came in through this TARDIS, and then we did some other things on the inside. On a
I
Christmas
love
Eve,
it.
it was at 11 p.m., so it was dark. We had lots of lights and other things happening. So just looking for ways to. There's some. I like to talk about Mary quite a lot at Christmas. You don't get much chance otherwise. Not in a Marian theology kind of perspective so much, just about who she was and what life was like to her. And picked up on the movie title, There's Something About Mary, which
Mm.
I managed to run for 3 years. There's something about Mary. There's still something about Mary the second year, and the third year was there's something more about Mary, and after that it was kind of enough for it. But I particularly like that it's bigger on the inside. This year I'm thinking that I'm going to use Kelly's book,
Hmm.
at Advent in Palestine.
Yeah, the first Advent in
First Advent in
Palestine.
Palestine, yeah, um, which I find it fascinating. In fact, even more poignant that she wrote it before
Okay.
the current war
Yes.
in Palestine. Which I found it very very moving. So I'm thinking that I'm going to read some big chunks out of her book as a narrative for retelling the story, because she picks up each of the main characters, and
Yes.
I think I will go through the first 4 chapters or so and pick out
Wonderful.
bits
Yeah.
and tell them as a story.
I used that book last year. Oh boy.
Mm,
Uh, it was very powerful. And then she, of course, has been another one of the ones I've interviewed for
mm,
Advent this year.
yeah,
So yeah, I've really been inspired by what she's done and is doing. I'm recommending it to everybody.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And it kind of, it strips away the superficiality
Yeah,
and the saccharine sweetness of the
yeah,
season.
absolutely. Yeah, she has some very good insights into what life would have been like back in that
Yes.
in Jesus' time, for people now. Which I really appreciate that. I think that
Mhm.
anchors it back in reality,
Oh,
and
yes.
it avoids, as you said, the saccharine kind of stuff. This is about God coming to earth. It's not about a baby and the delights of a baby being born. I think that's part of the story, but it's not the most important part of the story. I don't think it's
Mhm.
stories about God coming to earth and
Yes,
moving into the neighborhood, as Eugene Peterson translates it, and that's what we should really be trying to focus on. So, what does this baby coming, God coming as a baby, mean to us?
yes,
2,000 years later, and the
yeah.
difficulties of life.
Yeah. No, no, I agree wholeheartedly. Now, I understand that you have not seen this book, but somebody else in New Zealand recommended to me a little book called Celebrating the Southern Seasons by
Mm.
Juliet Batten. And she creates a calendar for Aotearoa, New Zealand, and she seeks to restore what has been lost and to align what has been dislocated
Mm.
is the way that she puts it, because seeing that so much of the seasons have not been aligned with what happens in
Yeah.
New Zealand, and in many ways a total dislocation. And she integrates some Christian, some pagan, and some Maori rituals and ideas.
Mhm.
And I was wondering what you thought of that approach, even though you haven't read it. I'm sure she uses the equinoxes and
Yeah.
things like that, but also Maori rituals and things like that. So, what are the kinds of things that you think it's important to integrate at this time?
Yeah, it sounds like what she does is what we would call reframing.
Mhm.
That what you do in any context is taking something. Communion was the most obvious example of Jesus reframing something, taking Passover meal, turning it into something different. So you have to understand the essence of it before you can do that reframing, putting it into a different context, and then the context of your own people. So reframing material rituals, whatever, from indigenous cultures can be tricky, I think. And that's, we still do it, and we do it often in New Zealand. But I'd put that sort of slight warning behind it just to pick up something and put it into a Christian context. And it's an ongoing debate in New Zealand, particularly in the last 5 or 10 years, as the whole Te Ao Māori, the Maori world, and way of looking at the world has risen to much more significance than previously. We're much more aware of our own history, and most of it's not good. Um, and this Sunday we remember Parihaka, which was an invasion by the New Zealand government, the Europeans, of a peaceful Maori settlement in order to take
Mm,
their land from them. And we will commemorate that. We'll remember that. We'll retell the story. And it's actually um, the leaders of that movement were part of the inspiration um, for Gandhi's peace movement.
mm. And
Rather,
of course, just to let people know, this is at the end of October that we are
yes,
recording this. So,
in 1881. So 2nd
mhm.
of November, 5th of November, sorry, is a celebration of Parihaka. Well, in New Zealand, we celebrate Guy Fawkes trying to blow up the British Parliament
Oh, I
on
know.
the 5th,
When you look at it, it's
5th of
horrific,
November.
isn't it?
It's horrific. And we hang on to that, and we cause mayhem, and the hospitals are overwhelmed with people injured by fireworks and the dogs that
Fortunately,
are
they
run
don't kind
amok.
of stand in the fire and burn at the stake as he
Yeah,
did.
it's just crazy. But Parihaka is coming into prominence. So anyway, that's just a roundabout way of talking about the need for care when we do take on things that we might not fully understand the
Yes.
significance of.
Uh-huh.
I don't think there's anything that can't be offered to God um, and reframed in some way. We just need to be careful, and also that what it might trigger in various people in our congregations needs to
Yes.
be framed carefully, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me, as you know, I'm very interested in Celtic Christian
Yeah,
spirituality and have looked a lot at the saints. And of course, part of what they did was they interacted with the Druids and they brought, they transformed
yeah.
the sites into the high crosses. Uh, and of course, I talk about that in the Advent book I wrote
Mm.
last year. But, I, yes, as I kind of learn more about, kind of our interaction with with pagan and indigenous kind of cultures, I think how insensitive we can be. And I don't know about the Celtic saints. Were they insensitive? I don't know. But we can be insensitive. And I know
Yeah.
even some people question at Easter using the Jewish Seder as a part of
Yeah.
our Holy Week celebration because we're taking it out of context.
Yeah.
And so we need to be very careful with these Indigenous celebrations and, if possible, talk to Indigenous people before we try and integrate them into our Christian worship, I think.
Yes, and to do some research on the significance of it and where it's coming from, so we understand what it is we're reframing. I mean, it's a bit like Halloween, which is unfortunately something that we've imported from the US into New Zealand in the last 20 years, and it's become quite big in New Zealand, which is a purely commercial event. There's no other
Yeah.
reason for it in our culture, except that it's started out as a Christian festival.
All Hallows Eve, yes.
Yeah, well, Hallows Eve. So we can go back and reclaim that, but we have to understand that. Whereas it's much easier for people, and it's generally what happens in churches in New Zealand, is that people just speak against it. It's all about this bad spirits and people that are dead and stuff. So we should avoid it.
And yet, I mean, I think I've learnt as I get older, and probably as I've lost friends over the last couple of years, I appreciate these celebrations of the dead more
Yes.
too. And I think how important they are. All Saints' Day
Yep.
on the 1st of November has become very, very important for me. And of course, it was connected to the 2nd of November and the Day of the Dead when people in Europe went to cemeteries. And so, learning more about some of the significance of these celebrations.
Yeah.
I know too, something I kind of surmised at one point and have learnt more about is that the Lenten diet of people that fasted during Lent, of lentils and basic foods. I thought, for most people, poorer people in Europe, this was their diet at
Yeah.
that time because they were the only things that had survived.
Mm.
And we're not aware that these kind of celebrations are rooted in reality. And I think,
Yes.
and we need to, I think, root all of these celebrations in reality and learn about the history of them, as you said.
Yeah, All Saints and All Souls offer wonderful opportunities to remember those who have died in the past year. And in New Zealand, increasingly, funeral directors are getting in on that and having services.
Oh, really?
So, we don't want to let that go as a church,
No,
Christian church. We should hang on to that. And on All
Yeah.
Saints Day this year, we will remember some, not particularly as saints because they've not been sainted, but people of significance. And I do use a broader kind of category than people who have been influential in our lives is what we remember and list in some way. There are some people in the Maori world, particularly around the Parihaka peaceful resistance in 1881, that come into that kind of category. So that's another way of recognising the indigenous world that we're part of in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's very good. I really like those suggestions. Anything else that you would like to share with our listeners, particularly looking again at Advent and Christmas before we close here?
If you're looking for a resource, I always use every year the 2-minute Advent. It's a little video on YouTube. They came out with an updated version a couple of years ago, it's just called the 2-minute Advent. I'm pretty sure, and that's just literally in 2 minutes a great overview of the 4 Sundays of Advent and the colours of the church year. So I tend to use that.
Oh, yeah, I've used that. I haven't seen it recently, but in the past.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good.
I would just encourage people to use as much kind of art as you can, whether you talk about it or not. But it does give a great, take something like Fra Angelica's paintings or many aspects of the Christmas story. Just if you
Mhm.
look at them, then you don't have to understand art particularly, but
Yeah.
just ask the question, what is the artist included in the story here or not included, and what is the artist conflated,
Mm.
run together in the story? And it just is a different way of looking at the various aspects of the Christmas story. So it gives you
Yeah.
some different eyes, different understanding, maybe more
Love it.
memorable than just words.
I love to particularly get art images from different cultures.
Yes,
It really has helped me to expand my understanding of the story.
yes, yeah. I think that's right. And
So,
there are some wonderful. You just have to Google any of them now, and
yeah,
it comes up.
it's great.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mark. This has been great. It's given me some more ideas for Advent and Christmas, and I'm sure it's given some of our other listeners ideas as well. So thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful Advent and Christmas season.
thank you, and the same to you in the other side of the world.
Yes. Thank you. In today's episode of Liturgical Rebels, I held a delightful conversation with Mark Pierson discussing the unique aspects of Advent and Christmas worship in the Southern Hemisphere, particularly in New Zealand. We explored the challenges and creative approaches of integrating local culture and indigenous practices into the liturgical calendar. Mark shared insights on how to make Advent a meaningful and reflective season, emphasizing the importance of community and creativity in worship. In the next episode, the last for this second season of Liturgical Rebels, and also the last for 2025, my husband Tom Sine and I will discuss our impressions of 2025 and some of our concerns, hopes, and dreams for the future. I am Christine Sine, an avid gardener, liturgist, environmentalist, seeker after justice, and speaker on spiritual practices. I am the author of Celtic Advent, Following an Unfamiliar Path, and The Gift of Wonder. I also write regularly on Substack at Walking in Wonder with Christine Sine, where you will find more extensive commentary on Advent and Christmas, as well as other aspects of spirituality. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the podcast. Please also share it with your friends or join me on Substack, Instagram, or Facebook.